Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Chelsea. Today I'd like to share with you this really cool technique using heat emboss. So I've got this really fun background and it looks like it's kind of like a painted on heat emboss. And so I'm going to show you how to do that today. We're going to be using the Beautiful Boughs stamp set along with its matching dies Beautiful Boughs. So let's go ahead and start with the technique. I've got a piece of real red cardstock, and the size for this is 4 3/4 by 3 1/4. And you're going to need a plate for this, like a paper plate or a scrap piece of paper, and just some regular glue. And I just found this in my craft room. And I'm going to use about a teaspoon of this. I'm just going to add that to your plate. And then a couple drops of water. And I'm just going to squeeze my aqua painter to get, I think I put down 3 drops there. And then a paintbrush. You're just going to mix that together. Okay, so when that's all mixed up, you're going to kind of wipe off some of that glue. So you just have a nice thin amount of glue on your brush. And then grab some scrap paper so you don't get it on your work surface. So here's my scrap paper. I've got my red cardstock and my glue. So pick up some glue and you're just going to paint that glue back and forth on your paper. And just go all over, and you want kind of varying thicknesses. And then we're going to get our heat emboss powder, and I'm just using white, and you're just going to add that to the glue. Okay, tap off any excess. So what you can see now is we've got some different paint strokes in heat emboss powder. And some areas dried really quickly, and so we didn't get any heat embossed powder on those areas. But other areas where it's a little bit thicker really held on to that powder. So let's go ahead and heat this up. I've got my heat tool. All right, so we've got this really cool technique, and you can see how this one is totally different than the one I had for my example. And that is the really fun part about this technique, is every piece is going to be different. Okay, so now that we've got that technique done, we're going to go ahead and do some stamping on this paper to give it some more interest and depth. So you just kind of have to decide which way you want your paper for your card. So we've got our embellishments down on the bottom left corner, and then we've got some stamping of the different pine boughs around. So I think I want it to go this way so I can kind of cover up this empty area with my greeting, and then I'll put the boughs along the bottom. So we're going to use StazOn ink for this because this is a glossy finish now, and our water-based inks will not stick to it. So get your single bough from the stamp set. Ink it up. And then we want one that comes up a little bit higher on the cardstock. And then one at an angle. And then one kind of down in the corner at an angle. There we go. Okay. So that piece of paper is ready to adhere to our card. So let's move on to the next thing we need to do for stamping, and that's to stamp and emboss our greeting. And I've got a strip of black cardstock, and it is 1.5 by 3.5. And then I'm going to grab my stamp, which is Season's Greetings from the stamp set. So for black, I don't like to use an embossing buddy because I feel like it turns it more of a chalkboard black. And so I'm going to use a dryer sheet. I've just cut it down, and I'm just going to rub that on my black cardstock to try and remove some of that static electricity. Okay, ink up your stamp and put it in the middle, and then get some powder. You'll notice you may still get some powder. So the best thing to do for that is to get a clean paintbrush and to just wipe off gently, carefully, that extra powder that's around. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and heat this with the heat tool. Okay, so all of our stamping is done. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to cut out at the Big Shot using the dies. So this little framelit label is going to cut out our greeting, and that's from the Beautiful Boughs die, and then we're going to cut 3 of the single bough from our Big Shot. So I'm going to go do that and be right back. Okay, so I've got those pieces, and now we're ready to assemble. So I'm going to start by adding a base to this, to the Real Red of Garden Green. So this is just the plain Garden Green cardstock, and that size is 5 inches by 3.5. And we're just going to apply those together. Just going to use some glue. And put those at an angle. So whenever I use glue, I always will turn it over and use a bone folder to smooth that glue out. So I'm getting good coverage. Great. So then I've got a piece of thick white cardstock that I'm going to add this to. And I can place that at an angle as well. Open it. All right, so then I'm using a couple things for embellishments. I'm going to use this Garden Green ribbon that's from the 2019 holiday catalog, as well as this Toil Tidings glitter enamel dots. We're going to be using the Garden Green of those, and then some silver metallic thread. So for this, I just wanted it to come straight across. So I'm just going to snip it probably just a little shy of 5.5, since that's the length of my card. And I'm just going to apply it probably a little higher than the base. And the reason for that is because this greeting is going to go in the middle, and we have to have some room for these boughs. So I'm just going to use some snail to apply that. The reason I'm not using liquid glue for the ribbon is because it can get pretty messy. It kind of will come through the ribbon, and it's just a mess sometimes. Okay, so I'm trying to line it up so it's even with the base of my card. Great. Okay, so for the greeting, the first thing we're going to do is add some snail and then some silver metallic thread. My thread came undone. So I'm just going to wrap that around kind of the smaller area of my fingers instead of the fatter area, since it's smaller greeting, just 5 or 6 times. And you can tear it or cut it. And then you're just going to center that on the back of the greeting. And then tuck in or cut any of those extra tails. Okay, so like that. You can move it or change it however you need. And then just go ahead and add the boughs. So I've put one in the top left corner and one in the bottom left, and then one in the bottom right. Okay, and then add some dimensionals. Let's do one more. Okay. And that just gets centered. You can put that little opening in the center of the ribbon. And it goes there. So I'm noticing that it's a little bit high for me. I'd like it to be a little bit lower. So because we just used snail, we could probably carefully pull this ribbon off. There we go. Make sure the adhesive all comes off. And then center that a little bit in the right, a little closer to where I'd like it to be. So this one's going to be a little lower than my original, I think. There we go. Okay. Well, now that I look at the original, it's a little low too, so it's probably fine. A little lower. Okay. And then the last thing is just to add some of these garden green enamel dots. And I've just used, so there's 4 different sizes. We go from small to pretty large. And I just used the first 3 and not the largest size. And I've just put them kind of randomly around. Let's put 2 up there, and then this other one, we'll put it down here on the whites. Okay, so there's our card. So that was a really fun technique to use. I hope you give it a try on a card. It doesn't need to be a Christmas card, maybe a thank you or a birthday, but and you could try it with all different colors too. It'd be beautiful in silver or gold, or even a similar color, like if I had a real red embossing powder, just to give it some dimension. That would be beautiful as well. I hope you enjoyed learning this fun technique with me today and that you give it a try. Please subscribe, like, and share. Visit creativechelsea.com for a free tutorial of this project and to purchase the supplies needed. Have a creative day. Bye!